What if I told you that almost every country on Earth is trapped in debt, and they all owe money to the same invisible empire? It's not a country, it's not a king, it's not even a name most people recognize. And yet, this entity controls trillions of dollars, influences elections, and has the power to crash entire economies without firing a single bullet. Governments rise and fall, but this financial empire stays hidden in the shadows, thriving off interest payments, bailouts, and financial chaos. What happened who come to heavy, where any of money? Who are they? How did they get this power? And why does nobody talk about it? This is the Monetary Mysteries, and today we're uncovering the secret empire that owns the world's debt. Let's start with a simple question. How can nearly every country on Earth be in debt at the same time? And more importantly, who are they in debt to? The US government is over $34 trillion in debt. The UK, over £2.5 trillion. France, Japan, Italy, all drowning in red ink. Even developing countries owe billions. So if everyone is borrowing, then who's lending? The answer isn't just China or rich people. That's only part of the picture. The real power lies with a global network of private central banks, supranational institutions, and quietly powerful bondholders. Entities like the International Monetary Fund, IMF, the World Bank, and yes, companies like BlackRock and Vanguard. These are not just banks. They are the arbiters of economic reality, dictating policy, imposing conditions, and reshaping nations. They lend, they collect interest, they restructure economies. But their names rarely make headlines. And when they do, it's never the full story. Imagine this, a spider's web stretching across the globe. Each thread represents a loan, a bond, a bailout, and at the center, an entity you didn't vote for, but that decides your country's fate. Let's take the IMF, for example. It offers emergency loans to struggling nations, but these loans come with strings attached. Massive austerity measures, privatization of public assets, cutting pensions and social programs. The people suffer, the elites and lenders profit. Or consider sovereign bonds, when governments issue debt on the open market. These bonds are bought by hedge funds, asset managers, and other nations. And if a country fails to pay, they're labeled a credit risk. Their currency collapses. Foreign corporations swoop in to buy national resources on the cheap. It's not just debt, it's leverage, it's control. To understand this system, we need to go back, way back, to 1944. A small resort town in New Hampshire, Bretton Woods. There, delegates from 44 allied nations met to rebuild the global economy after World War II. What emerged wasn't just peace, but a new world order. The US dollar became the global reserve currency, backed by gold. And two new institutions were born: the IMF and the World Bank. They were framed as forces for good, economic stability, growth, development. But in reality, they became the architects of global debt. Over the decades, as countries borrowed more, the power shifted. And when the US ended the gold standard in 1971, money became fiat, backed by nothing but belief. Now, the entities printing and lending money controlled everything, and no one controlled them. This secret empire doesn't just lend money, it enforces obedience. Enter the credit rating agencies, like Moody's, Fitch, and S&P. These private firms decide a country's creditworthiness. If they downgrade your nation, markets panic, investors flee, your currency sinks. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Manufactured collapse. Then there are economic hitmen, a term coined by whistleblower John Perkins. He described how nations are seduced into debt with promises of prosperity, then squeezed dry through interest payments and economic concessions. In the shadows are multinational corporations and private banks that help enforce these deals. All of it coordinated. All of it legal. All of it invisible. Let's step back and ask the simplest yet most important question. Who benefits from this system? The answer isn't just banks or governments. It's more insidious than that. It's the elite financial class, the small group of institutions, families, and investors who sit at the top of the pyramid. They don't just lend money, they own debt. They own influence. Think about it. When a government borrows billions for infrastructure or social services, who provides the funding? Private institutions, investment banks, bondholders, and in many cases, central banks operating in coordination with global asset managers. These lenders then collect interest payments from taxpayers for decades. Your taxes? They don't just fund schools or roads. They pay the interest on loans your country may have taken years, even generations, ago. And what happens when a nation can't pay? The lenders don't lose. They negotiate restructuring, which usually includes harsh terms. Sell national assets. Open markets to foreign exploitation. Privatize public utilities. Slash healthcare or education funding. Meanwhile, those same lenders may buy the privatized assets or gain exclusive access to markets once closed to outsiders. They turn economic crisis into a shopping spree. In Greece's debt crisis, ports, airports, and water utilities were sold off. In Argentina, the IMF dictated budget cuts and currency controls. In Africa, massive mineral rights were handed to foreign corporations, all in the name of debt repayment. But here's the twist. The loans are often structured in ways that make default inevitable. It's not bad governance, it's strategic entrapment. Because the true profit isn't in being repaid, it's in owning the leverage. Debt becomes a form of modern feudalism, where governments serve not their people, but their creditors. And the cycle continues. Now we come to the most chilling part of all. Why isn't this being exposed? Why doesn't the public know who their countries owe money to? Because the system is designed to remain invisible. Let's face it, the average person doesn't know how sovereign debt works. They hear about deficits and spending on the news, but never hear about the bond markets, the IMF negotiations, or the hidden terms of international loans. Why? Because this isn't just economics. It's a narrative war. Governments are told to speak in vague terms: fiscal responsibility, economic reform, stability measures. Meanwhile, the actual power brokers, the lenders, stay in the shadows. They don't need to campaign. They don't need your vote. They already own the most powerful asset of all: your government's promise to pay. And remember, they control the language too. The media rarely challenges the debt narrative. They talk about spending too much, instead of asking who we owe and why the interest never ends. Even in academia, most economists avoid criticizing this structure, because challenging it means challenging the foundations of modern global finance. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's a business model, one that thrives in silence. But here's the terrifying part. Debt is no longer just an economic tool. It's becoming a political weapon. Credit ratings can sway elections. Market reactions can destabilize regimes. Loans can come with demands, from military cooperation to trade policy changes. Debt shapes geopolitics. It shapes lives. And yet, nobody voted for it. There's no public oversight, no democratic accountability, only the illusion of control. Because when a country's policies are written in bond markets, not parliaments, who really rules? And what happens when the people finally ask the right questions? So, here's the final mystery. If nearly every nation is in debt, and nearly every citizen pays for it, but almost nobody knows to whom or why, what does that say about the world we live in? It says we're living in a financial illusion, a performance, where governments pretend to govern, while creditors pull the strings behind the curtain. Debt is no longer a tool. It's the infrastructure of control. And the ones who built it, they're invisible. They don't want credit. They want obedience. So next time you hear a leader talk about balancing the budget, ask yourself, who really holds the balance? And are we the citizens of our nations, or tenants renting our freedom with borrowed money? This is The Monetary Mysteries. Subscribe for more untold stories of power, money, and manipulation. Because in the modern world, debt is the empire, and we're living it.